And we're back, folks, here on WrestleRant. I'm Graham Jason Matthews with another review from the WWE Network. Today we're talking about the King of the Ring in 1993, kicking off my long series of reviews of the King of the Ring events from 93, running through 2002. A much better show than anyone who watched my last video, a much better show than Invasion 2001, I'll tell you that right now. Not a great show, but still a lot better and more historic than Invasion, so to speak. So anyway, not the first King of the Ring tournament. The King of the Ring tournament had been around in various forms, dating back to 1985 when Harley Race won it initially. And then from there on, it became a pay-per-view starting in 1993. They had other tournaments, like I said, in the late 80s, early 90s, but this was the first official tournament that was given its own pay-per-view in WWE, right next to the Big Four, starting in 1993. So anyway, kicking off the show in a quarterfinal matchup, the King of the Ring tournament, Bret Hart taking on Razor Ramon. A very good match in the opening slot. These guys worked well together. Razor Ramon was just starting out. I mean, he technically debuted in 1992, but he was still in his rookie year, I believe, in WWE. Had a great showing here. Not Bret Hart's best match of the night. I'll get to that soon enough, but still a really good match for what it was. Razor Ramon had a great showing in defeat. Like I said, Bret Hart scoring the victory and advancing in the tournament. So in the opening slot, I mean, we had other quarterfinal matches. We had Tatanka and Luger, Bam Bam Bigelow and Duggan, and then up next we had Perfect and Mr. Hughes, which I'll talk about in a second. But I was very happy that this was the match that kicked off the show because they had great chemistry and a lot better chemistry than the other three matches I just mentioned. So it was really well slotted, perfectly slotted in the opening matchup on the show. In their next quarterfinal matchup, we had Mr. Perfect taking on Mr. Hughes, like I said, in the quarterfinals of the King of the Ring tournament. Was what it was. I mean, again, not Perfect's best match of the night. It was just kind of there. A decent match, but it was pretty forgettable for what it was. After that, Bam Bam Bigelow versus Jim Duggan in the next King of the Ring quarterfinal matchup. All right. I mean, Duggan got in some nice offense. Bigelow was a lot better athlete than people give him credit for. One of the best big men in the business, in my opinion. So it was not as bad of a match as you would probably expect. Again, a good match. He had a good showing here. Duggan got in all of his spots for the most part. I mean, there wasn't really much more to the match than the story they were trying to tell. Duggan trying to hit the body slam. You know, hitting the body slam, he fails. Tries to go for it again, fails. And then goes for it a third time, finally hits it, but it was to no avail. Bigelow scored the victory and advanced in the tournament. So at least had something of a story to it for an albeit unexciting matchup for what it was. And our final quarterfinal matchup in the tournament, Tatanka taking on Lex Luger. Decent match. I like the no contest time limit draw rule, giving Bam Bam Bigelow a bye to the finals, which I thought was great, and it was perfect for the heel character. And I mean, we would see more of that in future tournaments, not only in King of the Ring, but in future tournaments just in general. But it was perfect for the heel Bam Bam Bigelow to advance straight to the finals. Tatanka and Luger, I believe, would feud again in what was it, 94 or 95? It was one of those years. I'm pretty sure it was 94, I want to say. When Tatanka went heel and joined the $1 Million Corporation. It might have been 95. I don't remember exactly. It was one of those years. I watched all the SummerSlam pay-per-views last year, and they faced off in one of those shows. But so kind of a sneak peek of what we would get with the roles reversed, this time around as opposed to a year or two later. But still a good match. Tatanka and Luger were not the greatest wrestlers on their own, so they didn't really have, they didn't really bring the best out of each other here. But it was a good match, a lot better than I thought it would be. And like I said, I like the time limit draw. My only gripe here with this match was that after it was over, Luger was like, I want 5 more minutes, extend the time, I want this match to go longer. And then the crowd cheered, obviously, but why would the heel be doing that? Shouldn't that be what the babyface should be doing? You know what I mean? That caused him to get cheered here, and obviously he was a heel this time, so that was a bit confusing, but that aside, it was a good match. In our next match in the King of the Ring tournament, the semifinals, Bret Hart taking on Mr. Perfect in a fucking phenomenal match. Honestly, one of the best matches I've ever seen. Not only from the 90s, but just in general. Like, these guys told a really, really good story, and you put two amazing athletes in the ring together. And I also like the story, too. They were going off of the WrestleMania match. It might have been SummerSlam. It was SummerSlam, rather. I think the year prior. Bret Hart and Perfect met for the Intercontinental Championship. And this match I thought was even better. Like, they told a really, really good story here, and you put two of the best submission specialists and just in-ring technicians in the ring together, and you're going to have a phenomenal contest, and this was really no disappointment whatsoever. My only gripe with it was that it wasn't the main event. The main event was pretty good, too. And I heard somewhere that, I think I read it on a What Culture article, that WWE's recently released top 100 best matches in WWE history book that they just came out with. That match is on there, the main event's on there, but this match is not, which is very odd. I mean, I know the main event is more historically significant in giving Bret Hart his initial King of the Ring victory. Maybe it was his second, I don't remember exactly. And also kicking off the feud between him and Lawler, which I'll get to soon enough. But this was the better match by far. That was a good match, but this was phenomenally better, significantly better. So again, great stuff here. Bret Hart scores the victory after Mr. Perfect goes for an inside cradle. Perfect reverses it, or rather, Hart reverses it to score the victory and advance to the finals of the tournament. So great shit here. What wasn't so great, unfortunately, was the WWE Championship match, Hulk Hogan defending against Yokozuna in a WrestleMania 9 rematch. One of the worst, if not the worst conclusion to a WrestleMania in WWE history, in my opinion. So Yokozuna contended for the gold against Hogan in a rematch from Mania. The match sucked every bit as bad as you would expect it to be. The only thing worse in the match itself was the finish, with the cameraman throwing in a fireball in the eyes of Hulk Hogan, which caused him to get distracted or whatever, and obviously Yokozuna took advantage, pinned Hogan to score the WWE Championship. So it was a big win for Yokozuna, obviously, to become a two-time WWE champion, to win the title on a, quote-unquote B pay-per-view, one of the first ever B pay-per-views that WWE ever had in the company's history. So that was pretty significant. And also Hulk Hogan's final match in WWE. He might have wrestled more house shows after this or more live events, but this was his last appearance ever in WWE on TV anyway, or at least on a major pay-per-view. I might be wrong there. I know he didn't wrestle at SummerSlam or wasn't at SummerSlam, but this was his final pay-per-view. I know that for a fact, before he went on to WCW the following year. So the match, not a very good way for Hogan to go out, and the match was awful. And apparently the story that, I might have talked about this in my WrestleMania 9 review last year or whatever, on the road to WrestleMania 31, when I reviewed all those WrestleManias. I might have talked about it then, but it's worth repeating that Bret Hart, when he lost the WWE Championship to Yokozuna at WrestleMania, only for Hogan to win it, and then this kind of kicked off Yokozuna's near year-long reign as champion, that really did Yokozuna no favors, obviously. But Hogan did not want to drop the championship to Bret Hart because he felt it was unrealistic. It wouldn't really make sense for him to drop it to a smaller guy, so he dropped it to Yokozuna instead, albeit in the worst possible fashion. Again, Yokozuna no favors. I like Yokozuna, but he was not a great wrestler. He didn't really have many good matches, if any at all. And him and Hogan just did not work well together whatsoever because Hogan was not a great wrestler either. So, and he was booked like shit. He lost the belt in 5 minutes at WrestleMania, not even that. And then won the belt in the worst possible fashion in his second time with the title. So, again, not a great reign for Yokozuna despite being one of the longest reigning WWE champions in company history. Which isn't hard to do when you have fucking 3 pay-per-views a year. No offense to that generation, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so Hogan was on his way out. He didn't want to drop it to Bret Hart. He felt it was unrealistic to drop it to a smaller guy, so he dropped it to Yokozuna instead. Which, again, was so stupid because the end game was Hart getting back the belt anyway at WrestleMania. It made for a better story with Hart getting it back at Mania as opposed to winning it back here or at SummerSlam or whatever, but we never really got that Hogan-Bret Hart match. Maybe in WCW, but we never got it in WWE for sure, which sucks because it really could have been a good match and a great way of passing the torch, but Hogan, being as stubborn as he was and not wanting to put other guys over, at least not smaller guys, didn't really feel the same way, so that was stupid, but yes, that sucked overall. After that, an 8-man tag team match, the Smoking Guns teaming up with the Steiner Brothers to take on the Head Shrinkers and Money Inc. Not a good match, massive train wreck with 4 different teams in the ring here. The finish looked like it was terrible. Just this match really did nothing for me whatsoever. Nothing on the line, just a basic 8-man tag team match, and it was all over the place. Not a good match. For the Intercontinental Championship, Shawn Michaels and Crush. Michaels successfully defending the WWE's Intercontinental title against Crush here. An alright match. They worked well together. They would have a couple other good matches in 1993. The only bad thing about the match, although it wasn't great, was the finish. With the Doinks coming down and they were teasing a feud with Crush. Don't give 2 shits about that whatsoever. And made Crush look pretty weak and look like an idiot for falling for that. And Michaels took advantage to retain the title. Made Michaels look good. And not only retaining the title, obviously, but taking advantage of the opportunity. Like the slimy heel that he was at that time. We also got the debut of Diesel on this show. If we didn't get it before this, they kind of made it seem like this was his inaugural appearance in WWE when he was introduced backstage in a backstage interview with Shawn Michaels. So it was also significant for marking the debut of Diesel in WWE, who would go on to later become WWE champion. No more than a year later. Or a little more than a year later, you know what I mean, but in 1994. So the match was decent, but the finish was just awful. So continuing the horrible streak of terrible finishes on this show, or at least in the last 3 matches. And then we get to the main event, Bret Hart and Bam Bam Bigelow in the finals of the 1993 King of the Ring tournament in a really, really good match. Again, not as good as the Mr. Perfect Bret Hart match, but still for what it was, really good match. Like I said earlier, Hart, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, so he kind of speaks for himself. But Bam Bam Bigelow, like I said earlier, though, a really, really good wrestler for a guy of his size, really agile, high flyer of sorts. So he and Perfect had some, or rather he and Bret Hart had really great chemistry. They told the traditional story of Bam Bam Bigelow being fresh after not competing in the semifinals. He got the bye. So Bret Hart, after a nasty night of in-ring competition, finally overcoming Bam Bam Bigelow. I mean, initially Bigelow won after interference from like Sensational Sherry or one of those managers, or Luna Vachon rather. And he won the match, but the referees overturned the decision. And then they decided, let's just restart the match. And Bret Hart, in the end, scoring the victory, becoming the 1993 King of the Ring. And the crowd bought into all the near falls, in the false finish, in the non-finish, and the restart, and the restarting of the match. So, great stuff overall. A great way of ending off and capping off the 1993 King of the Ring tournament. And then during the coronation of the King afterwards, Jerry Lawler came out and said, "You're not the real king, I'm the real king," and attacked Bret Hart to end the show. And that would kick off the multi-year reign, or multi-year lasting, I guess, if you want to call it that, of the Bret Hart versus Jerry Lawler rivalry. One of the most iconic feuds in WWE history, or at least one of the shining spots. I mean, Lawler didn't wrestle too much at that time, but whenever he did, or he found a surrogate or whatever, it was very entertaining. They had some great segments on Raw at that period in time, so this was what kicked off the long-reigning feud between Jerry Lawler and Bret Hart in WWE, so it also was significant in that respect. So a very historical show, like I said earlier. We had Hulk Hogan's final major WWE match. We had Bret Hart becoming King of the Ring. We had Bam Bam Bigelow having a great night of action. Not really historic, but I forgot what I was going to say, so I said that instead. We had the beginning of the long-reigning Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler feud, so pretty noteworthy night overall on 1993's King of the Ring, the first ever installment in the pay-per-view series. I've yet to watch 94, so I have no idea how it compares. We'll talk about that in my next video. But overall, I would say a good show. Was not the greatest of shows overall. I mean, the WWE title match sucked. We had a new WWE champion crowned. That was also noteworthy. Another noteworthy moment from this show. Another memorable moment, monumental moment from King of the Ring 1993. But the match itself sucked. Although not every match in the show was great, it still was historic more than it was good, but it was a very enjoyable show overall with a lot of really, really good matches and well worth watching for one match only, that being Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect. And the main event was good too. It was really, really good actually. But that was by far the match of the night. So needless to say, if there's any one match from the show that is worth watching, worth going out of your way to see, it is Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect, the semi-final match in the King of the Ring tournament. So that's it, folks. My review of 1993's King of the Ring tournament, or rather pay-per-view overall. I'll be talking about 1994's pay-per-view in my next video. But until then, guys, you can check out me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant. Follow me there. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. And right here on YouTube by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. All support is amazingly appreciated. So until next time, guys, until I review 1994's King of the Ring, have a great week or weekend, whatever it might be, whenever you listen to this. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.